My name is Steve Hanson. I'm president and CEO and founder of ACME Lithium. We are a North American explorer and developer of multiple lithium projects. We have 2 projects in Nevada and a group of projects in southeastern Manitoba.
Steve, thank you very much for the introduction. A pleasure to meet you, and I'm greatly looking forward to learning about ACME Lithium in the next 15 minutes or so.
A pleasure to be with you today, Merlin.
Good. We're approaching this with a kind of the contrarian investor hat on. I just want to kind of, perhaps could you start by, if I say to you, what's a contrarian investor, or what do you think of when I mention the words contrarian? What springs to mind for you?
Well, I think in these volatile markets, obviously there's been some interesting and challenging things that have been happening worldwide, whether it be inflation or dynamics with in the Ukraine, interest rates. The world continues to be in a challenging place, but it also creates opportunity. And in particular, we're seeing a massive groundswell and megatrend happening in the green economy as we need to reduce carbon emissions. And in particular, there is a crisis being faced here in North America for that core commodity of lithium. And so, in challenging circumstances, there creates opportunity. And I think for investors, it's understanding the dynamics that are taking place and taking a sharpshooter approach here in being very precise as the type of investments they want to look at. I think the lithium sector is something that is going to have a multi-year, if not a multi-decade run here as demand continues to outpace supply. And I think it's a place where investors should continue to look for opportunities. So again, I'm not an investment advisor, but I think when there are pullbacks in the market, I think there are opportunities that are created for investors, and hopefully the lithium sector is one of those.
That mega trend is so important, isn't it? In the pandemic, I produced a series of little lectures and snippets on views on various commodities, and my basic thesis was stick with the main commodities. The golds and the coppers, the liquid commodities traded on the terminal markets. And then, of course, lithium's been on this fantastic tear. And it's what I didn't pick up was that those fundamentals, when you get the government policies, when you get the weight of money, when you get a kind of a long-term change in the structure of a market, that's what can drive a multi-year a process. You mentioned it's North America, a North American phenomenon, the shortage of lithium, but it's a global trend and it's a global phenomenon.
Well, and I say that because we are focused on North American projects, but absolutely, this is a global issue. Majority of the lithium is currently produced in only a handful of countries, including Australia, China, Chile, and Argentina. And most investors are unaware that lithium isn't commonly produced in Europe and domestically in North America. There's only 2 places in North America, in fact, where lithium is currently produced. And that's in Clayton Valley, Nevada, where we have a neighboring project, and in southeastern Manitoba, where we have a group of projects. So, it's hard to believe. We open our cell phones and our tablets and our laptops, and we use our cordless power tools, and now our hybrids and EVs. We take it for granted that these core commodities are going to be available, and that's in fact not the case. So as battery factories are being built throughout Europe, throughout the United States and Canada, where are we going to get this core lithium supply? And if we have to rely on only a handful of countries, and it's going to be a challenge. And as well, we absolutely need a larger supply to meet up with this never-ending increasing demand. Every number that's being forecasted is being blown out of the water. So, it bodes well for companies that are in active exploration and development. And so we're excited about what's upcoming for ACME. We've been working very hard this last couple of years leading up to some key catalysts that are upcoming. As I mentioned, we have a core project in Clayton Valley, Nevada, which is really the epicenter of lithium development in the US. Lithium has been produced there at Silver Peak since 1966. We are contiguous to the northwest. We made a lithium discovery this summer, and we are advancing on a phase 2 program here shortly where we will do a pump test of that lithium brine discovery. There's very few lithium brine projects in the US. We are one of them. We will be doing a pump test of that discovery and then 3 more exploration holes. I'm expecting to commence that program here in the next 3 to 4 weeks. So a real key catalyst coming up here in Nevada. We've just finished from geophysics geophysics at our neighboring project at Fish Lake Valley that look interesting. And then I'm in the final stages of permitting our maiden and a major winter drill program in southeastern Manitoba, just south of the Tanko mine, which is a lithium, cesium, tantalum mine. We're a couple of kilometers south of there, and we've got a major drill program expected to happen this winter. So we're really busy. Lots of key items coming up for us at ACME. We're well funded and looking forward to providing and meeting these milestones for our shareholders.
And thank you. That's a nice gallop through the work program. In a sense that this comes back to the kind of contrarian theme, in that the equity market hasn't been really looking at these developments. The wider resources sector has had this massive downturn since the start of the Ukraine war and the concerns about the global economy and the risk-off environment. And all exploration stocks and resource stocks are down, and you're no exception. And so in a sense, what you're effectively saying is that you'll do a re-rate because the company is in good shape.
Well, there's things out of my control and in my control. And one thing that I can do is continue to advance the company and its fundamentals, and continue to meet milestones on a timely basis, to continue to use capital wisely. We are fortunate as a junior explorer and developer that we do have capital. I have enough. I've been well financed and backed by a number of key institutions that have funded me through last year, and we have just under $10 million in the banks. But for some companies, that's not a lot of money. For a junior explorer, it's significant. So I have enough money to continue this phase 2 program in Clayton Valley and do this winter drill program here in Manitoba, and then I will have funds left over to in running room to run our business for a period of time. I can stretch that capital out. I'm not having to go back to the market necessarily to raise capital at much lower valuations or costs. So, we have that benefit, is that I can continue to build and advance the company, hopefully have success with the drill bit, advance our discovery, and hopefully make new discoveries, and hopefully the overall markets on the junior side will continue to recover. And if we can meet milestones and have key catalysts, hopefully we're rewarded from a valuation standpoint. Again, I can't predict what's going to happen outside of our company, but we're going to do our best to move ahead and create value for our shareholders.
What would you consider to be a success with your at Clayton Valley? Because you've done some drill holes, you've found the brine, you've found the right stratigraphy. And you're now moving ahead to some pump tests. What would you look when you see the results of that in the months to come? What would make you feel comfortable that you've actually achieved what you were hoping to achieve?
Well, again, assuming we commence this program in the next 3 to 4 weeks. Again, there's always a chance of hiccups, but that's sort of the timeline. Again, let's assume that we begin this program sometime in December. It will take place over the course of a number of months. My goal here is to get to an inferred resource. I mean, that's really the key goal here, is to have some metrics. And that means, we need scale, and we need grade. So this program, if it's successful, again, there's no guarantee that it will be, but if it's successful and we meet this milestone, my hope is that we'll be able to get to an inferred resource in 2023. Midway through 2023 would be the target to have that understood. That then will result us moving into a phase 3 program. In parallel, we are working on what's called direct lithium extraction technology. There's a number of companies that are pouring millions, if not tens of millions of dollars into this new technology. It's where, rather than using brine ponds, you pump the brine into a plant or facility, and then ultimately inject the water back into the aquifer. So you use a smaller footprint, there's less capital required, Again, it's a more environmentally friendly technology rather than using brine ponds, which is the traditional way that brine discoveries and production is used. The process also doesn't take very long where you can extract lithium. And so brine ponds, you typically have to leave the brine settling for anywhere from 18 to 36 months. So there are advantages to DLE. That's certainly a technique or technology that we're continuing to evaluate. And based on this upcoming pump test, we'll be sending brine off to a number of DLE companies for evaluation. Again, some key milestones coming up. We're excited to get started, and hopefully we'll have success for our shareholders in the next few months.
And thank you. Interesting potential alternative development route for Clayton Valley. And at Fish Lake, what are the next? I know you've run them through, but I learned by repetition. Could you just repeat what's happening at Fish Lake, please?
Well, again, we're in the northwest side of Albemarle Silver Peak project. We're contiguous to the northwest at our brine project. But if we move west over the foothills there to the valley next door, it's called Fish Lake Valley. And there's a major discovery that was made there a number of years ago and is in feasibility right now. And it's run by a company called Ioneer, an Australian company. They signed offtake agreements this summer with Ford, Toyota, and Panasonic. We are their neighbor to the west. This is a clay project that we're advancing. Again, just because we're beside a world-class project doesn't necessarily mean that we are. Rocks do stop and start, so I want to mention that. But we do have lots of interesting data to date. We're seeing some good hits in sampling on lithium on surface. We think some of the geology is very similar to what that major project that is and has found. We've just recently completed some geophysics there, and we've got some clay targets that look interesting. So I'll be making a drilling decision on that project sometime over the next couple of months. We're focused more at Clayton Valley, but we think that there's some really interesting things taking place at Fish Lake Valley. Again, a clay project, good sampling results on surface. The geophysics has certainly identified a number of targets that we want to go after, and I'll make a drilling decision on that project here in the next couple of months.
And you, on those clay things, you've obviously got that development risk because there are no clay operations in operation at the moment. So in some ways, it might be safer to focus on Clayton and kind of push that advancement and maybe the hard rock up around the Tanko areas in Manitoba. And
you're precisely right, Merlin. We have focused. We are rapidly working towards and moving along our projects at Clayton Valley, our brine project, and then our pegmatite projects in Manitoba. The Fish Lake project, although it's not on hold, we are taking our time there and evaluating it. So, and frankly, for us to run 3 exploration programs on separate projects, we are limited in our resources for human capital, and also we want to make sure that we don't use up all of our treasury until we advance at least one project. So. We've spent a little bit of money on geophysics here. We're seeing some good results, and we also are seeking a joint venture partner at Fish Lake, and maybe that will help us be able to advance it on a faster pace than we could on our own.
Yeah, makes perfect sense. Right, let's over to Manitoba if we could. So there's some other exploration companies in the area that have had some good success identifying pegmatites. Are you in the similar style of geology?
Absolutely, and this is really, we spent 3 months analyzing the region. We focused in around the Tanko mine. The Tanko mine is owned by a Chinese company, by Sinomine. It's a lithium, cesium, and tantalum mine. Has been producing off and on since 1969. They have submitted permits and are hoping to expand that operation over the next couple of years. There is further exploration going on in the region, region, as you mentioned, by a number of companies. We're seeing greater investment internationally in the region, whether it be from institutional investors or strategics as well. So I think the southeastern area and Manitoba in itself are going to continue to see great growth here. I believe there's going to be multiple discoveries made in the region. I just got back from a conference there. There was over 600 people in attendance from industry, from government, from some of the companies in the area, and there was a really positive mood as to what's happening. And I really do think it's an underfollowed area, but I think that's going to change over the next couple of years. We had an extensive summer program ongoing at our 3 projects there. We're only 1.5 kilometers south of the Tanko mine. We're contiguous to their mining leases, actually. To the south, we've got one of the largest land positions. We've completed geophysics this fall. It's in processing right now. We've submitted permits on priority 1, priority 2, and priority 3 drill targets to the Manitoba government and various agencies there. We've signed an agreement with Saugeen First Nation in collaboration with them. So we're really excited about working with Saugeen First Nation. We do employ through some of our contractors, some of their people, and we continue to look for other collaborations that we can do within the community. We use a number of local service providers for our work that we do, and we're proud to be contributing to the economy there. So I'm waiting on our permits here. Again, I was in Winnipeg at a conference this past week talking with members of government. I'm hoping to get the green light here in the next few weeks, and we can begin our winter drill program here in Manitoba. This is a maiden drill program. Again, this is an area that is highly prospective. We're very excited to get started. Massive pegmatite fields throughout this region, and we're hoping to make an initial discovery here through a winter drill program starting hopefully very soon. And
have you mapped it, field sampled, and done the geophysics, and done the best you can to locate those pegmatites?
Well, we have a large area, and that's going to continue. When in spring, once again, we'll get boots on the ground. It's difficult territory, although their elevation doesn't change much. It is kind of rolling. There's a lot of water around.
Yeah.
We've had boots on the ground in summer, but we do have a very, very large acreage area, and we've just really it's been a tip of the iceberg as to the work that we've done. We want to get back in there next summer and continue to look in areas that we haven't been able to touch yet. We've added acreage this past year as well that still is underexplored. This phase 1 drill program is targeting a particular area that we think is prospective based on some of the data we've analyzed. But we do expect that with success and access to capital, that there'll be multiple phases of drilling here throughout this project. Again, Shatford Lake is south of Tanko Mine. Our Burst Lake project is slightly to the east, and then about 20 kilometers to the north is our Cat Euclid Lake project. So there's more than enough work for us here to do, and hopefully we'll have success with this first phase of drilling with the drill bit.
In some ways, it sounds almost like a kind of proof of concept, and yes, you hope to make a discovery, but you won't know for a while whether this is the best area in your larger area. So you've got to keep an open mind to not get data bias. I mean, if you hit something with one drill hole and you throw all your resources onto that one drill hole, you might miss something which is bigger potentially nearby.
Well, absolutely. And if we don't have success in this phase 1, it doesn't mean that we may not have success in a phase 2 program. So again, a large area, vastly underexplored, lots of potential. We're near a producing mine that's been producing off and on since 1969. They are shipping high-grade ore actually right now from that mine. It's being bagged. There's hundreds of bags on site. They're being put on flatbed trucks. They're being trucked to the railhead, and those rail cars are heading to Vancouver in Western Canada, and then put on freighters and being shipped to China right now. That's how desperate the world is for this commodity, for the fact that it's high-grade ore is being put on. And if those flatbed trucks can't get on the rail cars, those flatbed trucks are actually driving to Vancouver from Manitoba. So it really says a lot about the need for this commodity, but also the nature of the commodity price. Lithium broke through $80,000 over this past weekend. Those prices would have been unheard of 2 years ago. We're up almost 20 times as a commodity price in the last few years. So, we're seeing some dynamics here that are creating a huge opportunity for our industry, and hopefully will continue to be a success story on the ground and can deliver on behalf of our shareholders over the next few months.
And there's that wonderful irony of the kind of America trying to get its mineral independence and to try and get this homegrown mineral supply for kind of security and understanding the provenance of the mineral and all of that. And then one of the two mines which are operating in North America is actually disappearing off to China. I mean, you couldn't make it up. It's too funny in some ways.
Well, and I think a lot of the focus has been on the downstream situation. We're seeing announcements almost every few weeks where a new battery factory is being built in Canada and the United States. There are announcements about processing as well. And we talk about the EV manufacturers. Again, a lot of focus has been on the downstream side. And I think we need to continue to advocate on the upstream side as to how are we going to create a domestic supply. I do believe that some good things are starting to happen at the federal level in the US and Canada. We need to see it at the state and provincial level as well. And all stakeholders and rights holders need to advocate for this industry. And the reality is if we want to have carbon emissions reduced and the trains left the station here, we're going to have EVs and hybrids, and they're going to be bought in large numbers. It's estimated there's 3 million people on waiting lists for EVs right now globally, and that's continuing to increase. So with this demand coming, we need to continue to advocate for our industry. The mineral resource sector is not a no impact industry. What we want to create is a low impact industry where we use best practices. ESG issues are very important, and we need to continue to educate and advocate for our industry to make sure that we get through the permitting process. And that's really the biggest issue here and bottleneck is for these projects that are world class around North America, in Canada and the US, is how do we get them greenlit on a timely basis? And that's really important. And hopefully we're seeing a push on that regard at all levels. And
I think rightly so, every mine development in a responsible jurisdiction is being regulated with ever increasing scrutiny and better monitoring and better practices, which are all good.
Sorry, go ahead.
I just wanted to say that the impact, it may be high, but the aerial extent is very tiny, and the benefit to society is massive. The external benefits to society of having these products, so that our smartphones and whatever can run it, is huge, and so that has to be put into the equation.
Absolutely. And as you say, some of these projects can have very low impact when it comes to the environment. And I think education is important here, and continuing to build on that. So, I continue to advocate for our industry and continue to talk on panels and at conferences about these core issues. We need to continue to put resources into human capital at the government level and the permitting side. If anything, it's not just investment in the downstream side; it's investment in the upstream side as well to make sure that we ultimately secure supply. And it's now become not just an issue of economic security; it's an issue of national security as well with regard to these items. And I'm not saying that we shortchange us on the checklists that need to be signed off at a permitting standpoint. We need to just make sure that we have the resources that can move forward and make sure that those that takes place in a timely manner.
I think you touched on a very key point there, which of course is institutional capital. So, and the education, we need to have the geologists, the process engineers, the mining engineers coming through, but equally you need to have the skills in the institutions, in the in the mines departments and the governmental agencies that understand the issues and understand how to regulate and have a skill base and an experience set that enables them to be the regulator.
Well, and we're fortunate at ACME Lithium that we have projects in Nevada. Nevada has consistently been named either the number 1 or number 2 mining or resource jurisdiction in the world. And that's because it has a long history of resource development going back many, many decades. And so there is a local municipal, community, state understanding of how this process works. So we're in a very good jurisdiction in Nevada with our 2 projects. You can work there 12 months of the year. If you need a wrench, there's a Home Depot by. You're not in the jungle or the Arctic. There's a lot of advantages to Nevada. Our crews can sleep in their own beds at night. In many cases, you don't have to build a huge expensive camp. Again, a lot of advantages. You've got road, power, infrastructure nearby, and ultimately end users too. So, there's a lot of advantages to us being in the state of Nevada with our 2 projects. And partly the reason why we're there is because of those advantages. And the same with Manitoba, a long history of development and in the resource sector in Manitoba. We are in the southeastern corner, so we're near the US, we're near Ontario. So we're not that far away from Detroit. We're near end users. There's 2 battery factories being built in Ontario that are planned, one in Eastern Ontario, one in Western Ontario, and then obviously battery factories in the US. So we're near rail, we're near power, there's good infrastructure in Manitoba. And so one of the reasons why we've chosen that as a place for exploration development is some of those risks aren't there for us, whereas they are in other regions. So I think we've got some advantages in proximity, in location, and frankly, the fact that we're right beside the only 2 existing mines in North America means that there's already lithium production. So hopefully we're going to be able to contribute to that down the road.
Thank you very much. Before you go, just a quick question on your listing. You're on the CSE.
We're traded
a bit about that.
Under ACME, ACME is our symbol on the CSE. And then this past summer, we were upgraded to the OTCQX, which is the highest level of the OTC markets under ACLHF. So we're listed in the US and listed in Canada.
And are you going to change from the CSE to the TSXV? Are you comfortable with liquidity and access to capital and the way that the CSE is working?
Yeah, the CSE has been growing rapidly over the last few years. In fact, there's been more capital raised on the CSE now than certainly on the junior side than the TSX. There's been more listings. Again, both are viable and good places to be. For now, we're satisfied and happy where we are at the CSE. Down the road, we may look at other opportunities, but we're certainly pleased with where we're listed and continue to attract interest on the CSE and certainly in the US.
Good. Well, thank you. It was completely new to me, so that was it's good to hear. Thank you very much. When should we speak again? When should we 3 meet again? What's the next kind of milestone? If I wanted to do a technical call with you, when would be the time to do that? Well,
I'm hopeful that we can announce, in the next few weeks that we've mobilized and ultimately drills are turning in Clayton Valley. Again, I'm crossing my fingers. There's a few things that have to go well, including weather and all sorts of things. But that's our estimates is that we should have news about that sometime in mid-December. I'm hoping to receive word on our permits in Manitoba in December as well for a winter drill program. So those are the key milestones that are coming up. Ultimately, for investors, I think the results are really what are going to be key here. Yeah. And as exciting as it is to get started with the work, it means that results will be forthcoming, and we'll have those results coming sometime probably in the latter part of the first quarter of 2023. Yeah. So happy to reconnect again sometime in the new year, if that makes sense, Merlin.
Great. Well, I'll keep an eye out for those results, and thank you very much for your time today.
Okay. Thank you as well, Merlin. Take care.